Hello and welcome to Math World. Today we're going to talk about functions. Now, this is a huge concept because basically the entire year is going to be talking about functions. All a function is a relationship between two variables or two things. So we're going to constantly compare two different things and see how they relate to each other. Like let's say buying a book for $3.50. You go to the bookstore and they're having a sale and all books are $3.50. Alright, so there's a relationship between two variables here. We learned last class how to identify the independent and dependent variable, meaning which is the variable that comes first that decides the other variable. In this case, the independent would be the books. You have to buy a book to then figure out how much you're going to spend. So books is the X variable and the cost would be the Y variable. The cost depends on the book. Alright, so the function is essentially just the relationship between the books and the cost. Now what's interesting is that there's multiple ways that you can show this function. We show it verbally or through a word problem just by saying it. Buying a book costs $3.50. That's one way of showing a function. We can also model this relationship in a table. We can keep track of, hey, if I buy 0 books, well, I'm going to spend $0. But if I buy 1 book, well, then my cost will be $3.50. And if I buy 2 books, my cost will be $7. 3 books, my cost will be $10.50. And so this table is a second way of showing the relationship between books and money. We can also show it in an equation. Now this is the big part of algebra. We've worked with equations a lot, but how does the equation relate to our function? How can we create an equation that would model this? Well, let's see. Our cost is our Y variable, and we can say that our Y variable will always be equal to the amount of books I buy, X, times $3.50, because it's $3.50 per book. So my equation will say Y is equal to $3.50X. That means if X is 1, Y is $3.50. If X is 2, 2 times $3.50 is 7. And you see our table essentially lists all the possible combinations. Our equation is a general rule for our function. And lastly, we can show it through a graph. It's the fourth way. And when we make a graph, we always want to make sure that we label our variable. So we'll put our dependent on the y-axis, and we'll put our independent down here on the x-axis. And essentially, if we buy 1 book, the cost is $3.50, so we put a little plot there. If we buy 2 books, our cost is $7. At 3 books, our cost was $10.50. And we even jump ahead. At 5 books, what's 5 times $3.50? 5 times $3.50 should be $17.50. So at 5 books, we'll plot a marker right here at $17.50. It might be a little high. My graph's not perfect. Ideally, we'll be using graph paper. But we create this graph that models the entire relationship. I think I'm hiding the 10. There it is. At 10, we should hopefully know that 10 times $3.50 is 35. And so that would be all the way up here. And there's our function. Here's a graph that shows all the possible books and cost. So that's a function. We're going to look at a lot of different types of functions and the way that two things can relate to each other. But we'll always show it verbally, through a table, through an equation, and on a graph. Well, that's it, and I'll see you in class. Now for a word from our sponsor, Paper Cut Games. This week's game, Munchkin. Munchkin is it's a very, very popular new game where you're kind of all, it's like a a fun way of doing Dungeons and Dragons, but like a lot more humorous. Basically, in this game, everyone's going to draw some cards, and when you get your cards, they're going to give you things like, oh, I can be an elf, or I can be a thief. So you pick your class, and then you also can get fun equipment like spiky knees, or a bow with ribbons. So basically you get these kind of fun equipments, and then on your turn you're going to flip over this. It's called kick down the door. You're jumping into a dungeon, and things could come out like a wannabe vampire or a leprechaun, or something bad could happen, like you get a chicken on your head. So as you kick down the door, you're going to have to fight these monsters based on your strength that you've come up with. And the fun part of this game is everyone else can either decide to help you fight the vampire, or at the last second, your friends can actually join sides with the vampire and defeat you. So you never know when someone's going to be your ally or someone's going to backstab you. And there's more fun cards like Rat on a Stick and Cheese Grater of Peace. And these cards you collect and get stronger. And every time you defeat a monster, you get to go up a level. Everyone starts at level 1 and you go up to level 2. And once you get to level 10, you are the winner. But it's kind of hard to get to level 10 when people are sometimes helping you and sometimes backstabbing you. That is Munchkin. A really fun game for 4 to even 10 players. I'm Mr. Bigsby, and I approve this message. Hey class, what's up? It's Mr. Bigsby with a hat, and I've got a challenge question for you. Alright, so if you understand functions and how to write an equation from a story, then write an equation for this story. I spend $90 on my phone plan every month. Alright, but then I also spend 50 cents on apps that I buy throughout the year. Apps or songs or anything that I buy, it usually costs about 50 cents. So, what is my equation for my total phone bill at the end of the month? Think about my two variables and what my equation will look like. Leave it in the comments, and I'll see you later.